you hear that? You heard this meeting is being recorded? All right. So let's switch back to. Hey, what's going on?
Hello.
We're starting it up. You look all fancy.
I do not. I'm sweaty. I told you I was at the gym. I ripped my hand.
No, I'm talking about your headphones and your mic. You're showing me up.
I know. I'm surprised you don't have headphones.
You sound really clear. Well, I mean, I'm usually doing a lot of this stuff solo, and so when I do that, I do have headphones, and it works.
This isn't even the nicest headset. We have this. My husband has a fancy one with like lights and stuff.
Oh, nice.
I know.
Because he's a professional podcaster?
No, he's a professional gamer.
Oh, that's right.
At least he thinks so.
Cool. So what's going on? What's new?
Oh, I just got back yesterday from my family trip up in Big Bear. My 19 family trip. It was
19? Was it like Ron and Mindy and all them too?
No, it's my family.
Okay, your side of the family?
Yeah, my side of the family. My parents, my 3 sisters, their husbands, and all the kids. Yep. Went up there for
where'd you go?
5 nights in Big Bear.
Big Bear?
Yeah, the weather was nice. There was a couple days of rain, so it was kind of hard to plan some like outdoor activities, but we did a few. It was nice. The place we were staying at had like a volleyball court, so we did some pretty awesome volleyball games and basketball courts. So we're pretty active, moving around. It's a little bit of walking hike with the small children, and then me and Ryan got out there on the pedal boat, which don't let that
it doesn't look. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not as easy as it looks, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a leg workout.
I could tell. The one time I caught you on the phone, it was like you were out of breath.
I was literally, when you called me, I was literally on the lake paddle boating.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Is this the situation where you had the food thing with the, do you want to talk about that at all? Do you want to talk about it towards the end, or like, do I want to ask how it went and all that? Okay.
In the nicest way possible.
Okay, so let's set this up just a little bit, okay? And in the nicest way possible, you're going to put a positive spin on this. But so I don't know if we talked about it in the last one, but you had a situation where you're going with the whole family out in this little, week-long ordeal. And then there's always this concern about like, how are we going to do our thing, eating real food our way, and also mix it or, intermix it with like what's going on with everybody else, because they all want to do family get-togethers and dinners and meals and stuff like that.
Yeah. So ideally, the thing is I cook all the time, and, when you're on vacation, sometimes you don't want to be cooking all the time. And so the idea behind, everybody taking turns cooking is really great, because then it doesn't put so much pressure on you doing it every single day. Or if you have a family of 19, that everybody's in the kitchen at the same time cooking. So this is our 3rd trip, like big family trip together. So we've been doing it for like the last 3 years, and every year I think it's getting better with the food thing, as far as like trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But you still have so many different types of people and types of eating habits and just different ways of eating that it makes it challenging. But I think there's room for improvement. And every time we leave, we think about, or at least me, what we could do better. Because initially when I went into this, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do my own thing. And it's easy for me that way because I control the food, I control the ingredients. But then I thought, after talking to you for a while, that, when you have these situations with family and they love to eat and it's around mealtime and you get together and you gather, that if we make it about just the food and like not the events and stuff, then it becomes overwhelming, because then you feel like you're always cooking, you're always in the kitchen. It's about the next meal. And that's what I don't want it to be like.
Well, you said when you do your own thing, it's easier because you can control the ingredients, but then you slightly miss out on the socialization and the camaraderie of everyone eating the same meal and doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's hard. It is a challenge, a struggle to just kind of please everyone. But if you go into like thinking like you're eating out, like if you were going to a friend's house or on a date for the first time, and meeting someone, you would say, hey, I'm going to go over there, and you would look at their food and you wouldn't be judgmental. You wouldn't act that way towards, new people and greeting them. You'd be hospitable and say, hey, welcome. I love the food that you created. And then you in a nicest way possible without them. Like my family would be like, why aren't you eating that? Like they'll call you out. So maybe when you go and meet new people, they'll be like, oh, why are you doing? They'll be curious. So I think it's just different because with my family, we just know each other so well and we don't hold back. So there's a lot of conversations like, well, why are you doing that? And then the food thing is brought up, well, why are you eating that? Or why don't you eat that? Kind of type of thing. So I think when you go to
where you might've been going with that though, is that one option that we didn't talk about, because remember what we talked about was like, when we have these family situations, we can basically talk to the person in charge or everyone involved and just say, hey, we're doing this meal this day. Okay, cool. I just want to know so I can support what's going on, so I can prepare myself, because I want to be included. I want to be a part of this whole thing,
Yeah. And I think that's a great idea. I think that you mentioning that, like, hey, let's go up, everybody tell me what you're bringing, and then I can accommodate as needed. And I did that. And that was great. I think the problem is we overplanned. We overplanned for a family of 19. Like I don't eat breakfast and neither does my husband. And I mean, my kids do. I don't eat as many meals or consume as much food as everyone. So then the problem comes into there's so much food that we don't need to make more of these meals that we had planned, but we already bought the ingredients. So that was actually the struggle. Was I am not a wasteful person. I hate wasting food.
You can't just take it home? Was it stuff you could just throw in the cooler?
Well, I did. I took a lot of things with me because but the problem is like there's food that's not food I would eat. Right. So then I tell myself, do I just let that go to waste? But I still feel in my heart, like, even though it's not good quality food, I just feel like, I don't know, maybe I'll just find some.
If it falls in the realm of real food, like I'm here and not everything is like, organic and, yeah, and I'm totally fine with that. Like, but I think one of the things that we didn't talk about, it sounds like you were kind of moving towards it, was another option in these family situations is to treat it like you're eating out at a restaurant, meaning that out of what they provide, you just pick the things that are the closest thing to real food, even though it may not be as perfect as you would do or as pristine as you would make it at home. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And we did a pretty good job about that. Like there was nights like me and Ryan, like we around the meat thing, like I did a rib night. So that was great there. My brother-in-law did burgers. They were really great. And then someone else did tri-tip and we did tacos. So like I'm making meat the priority, and the course is great as far as food. But like I said, like when there's a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, and I don't consume that much, I just felt like don't plan for 19 because don't include me, because I just don't consume as much. So when I say there's so much leftovers that making a whole nother meal the next day just seemed like, and I look at my husband and he's the same way. He's like, I can't say good quality food going to waste because you feel like you want to make another meal. Just, we're leftover people. You eat the leftovers.
Well, so let's boil that down to a few takeaway points and just tell me if this is accurate. So number one, when you have these family situations and there's like a deal where you got like several families coming together and you're trying to coordinate meals and things like that, you want to be inclusive. You don't want to be one of those groups of people who's like, well, look, we eat a certain way, so we're just going to do our own thing, even though you could do that. It's very easy. Another option is just to say, hey, we want to be involved and included, but we have a few dietary preferences. So if you can give me a heads up on what the cuisines are for the different days, if we need a couple of alternatives for our kids or something like that, we can have that be prepared, but we still want to be a part of this or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think if I was like I said, every year this is our third year, we were kind of perfecting it to kind of accommodate everyone's needs. And that's very hard with a large group, but I think if I would do it next time, I would probably just suggest, hey, let's just plan a dinner.
Okay, so then that's the second point. Okay, so the second point that I hear you saying is that because most of us don't eat that often anymore, another thing that we can bring up in that planning process is like, hey, instead of planning breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everyone, because we don't really eat that often, why don't we just make the main focus the dinner and everyone else kind of does their own thing for breakfast and lunch and throughout the day?
Yeah, because we found ourselves, this is what happened, is like you find yourself like some people left and they went to eat out and they actually ate out lunch. So they weren't eating lunch there so that it's less people. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's fine tuning. It's fine tuning it. And I love that we can do that as we keep going, we keep practicing. We'll get better. But I feel
having
like
these kind of conversations is really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And you know what? I have these conversations with you and it's great. And I need to have this mentality when you go back to talking about how you talk to people and family, or when you're ordering food. Like, I need to be better about being mindful when I speak and not defensive, because I catch myself doing that, and I'm trying to work on that. And I wish I was better.
I can hear it, and you are getting better. And I can think about, because this has actually been a recent change for a lot of us. We've kind of moved away from the, hey, look, you need to strive to be as optimal as you can every single day. And not that there's not, I mean, that is a good thing, I guess, but like, we've gotten so much more flexible and almost like a coaching mindset, you know, like we want to meet people where they are and something along those lines, because then you'll lose people if you're like that, right? So I think you are doing that, because you keep going back and revisiting it in your mind, and you're asking these questions, which I think is really useful. And then we have these discussions, and we haven't put it into this format yet. So first we have that inclusive part saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. Let's give me a heads up so I can kind of make any exceptions I need to for my kids. The second thing you said was, instead of planning all the meals in a day, let's just plan it around the dinner meal, and then everyone else is free for all for the other meals. And that's exactly what we did here at Arnica's parents. When my family came in, Rachel and her kids, you know, Rachel's got her daughter with the autoimmune condition, so they're really, really clean and strict. And my father and all them were over there. And so as we planned this thing, I said, look, go to the grocery store, get what you need to have the staples for your breakfast and lunch and snacks and things like that, and we'll just plan on family dinner every night. And that made it so much easier, because it was really only one big meal that you had to navigate around.
And then I love there's no pressure. I felt like maybe on this trip in Big Bear that it was harder to go out and do some of the physical events and activities and just moving around and enjoying like that location. If we feel like we have to get back and cook for people, even though like we did a good job about like, you only had that one day, but there's room for
exhausting if you're doing several meals in a day.
There's room for improvement.
Yeah. So then I think the third thing that I heard in our discussion today was that when you are, when someone else is responsible for that dinner meal or a meal in general, treat it like you would treat it as if we were going out to eat at a restaurant or on a dinner date or something like that. And basically, you're not going to be so rude as to not eat. You're just going to eat the things that are as close to real food as possible, and make your own personal decisions on where you're going to kind of give on that. Yeah,
that's all you can do, right?
Yep. Versus going off in another room and having a little skillet and making your own little dish in the bathroom or something like that, you know.
Nobody's doing that. That's crazy.
Okay, not the bathroom, maybe you know what I'm saying.
No, yeah. Or just people like, you're not eating, people are looking at you like, you're not hungry.
Yeah. I'm gonna go get my snack, my epic meat bars in my bedroom.
Oh my gosh. All right,
cool. Those are some really good learning points. I love that.
Yeah. I'm glad my family experimentation is entertaining.
Well, I think it's just useful. That's it. It's good discussion points.
I'm pretty sure there's probably other people out there who have a struggle like me.
Yeah. So next thing I wanted to talk about, if you don't mind, do you mind if we transition into something else, or do you have anything else?
Of course.
Of course you mind, or of course you don't?
Of course I do not mind. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right, cool. So did I tell you about my conversation with Maurice, my 21-year-old insulin resistant 450-pound guy?
Yeah, you were meeting with him again, and you guys were talking about he's doing a show.
Yeah, so a couple of days ago, because I've been up here for over a week now, so I'm doing a lot of virtual calls, and so we had a virtual Zoom meeting, just a little check-in deal. It was really cool because he had a cousin in that got to sit in on the meeting.
Oh, nice.
Got really interested in what we're doing, you know. And so one of the things that came out of that was, what I'm really proud about Maurice, first of all, he went from 450 pounds to now he's just under 300 pounds. He's like 295 or 297 or something like that. I think to get weight on DEXA, at the DEXA on a DEXA scan, he had to be 350 pounds. I remember we were just waiting for him to cross that threshold so he could get measured, but now he's under 300.
Wow.
And I know, so great. And so he's at the level that we are, as far as like, he's internalized it. Like there's no risk.
Yeah. You said no second thought. Yeah.
There's no possibility of me walking at Sunset Park and seeing him on a bench with a bag of Cheetos. Like he's 100% in. He has his own rules as far as when he allows himself to go off once a month and eat whatever he wants and that kind of thing. But it's just a part of who he is. He's not fighting it. And then we got into this discussion because I was like, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I was like, this is where we want everyone to get to, is this point to where this is a part of who I am. This is my life. It's not a temporary thing that I'm doing. And there's plenty of people that come to a seminar or go through a progression and they get excited about it and it's a great idea and they try it and they're bouncing back and forth. And before you know it, it's more of the bad than the good. And it's just like that whole thing, And so you and I started talking about like, what's the deciding factor there? How do we get someone to move from tinkering with it to this is a part of who I am? What are your thoughts on that?
That's hard because I think that in Maurice's situation, he had such great success with the SHT, and it really depends on how you start out. So with him, he moved into this and he saw some really great results and he kept going, he continued, and then more results and more results. So he sees that progress and it is completely inspirational for him, other people, motivation to keep going. And then there's other people as members that have these great success stories.
Well, so what you're saying is you got to get some wins in the beginning or some results so that it gives you some motivation to want to keep moving.
Well, see, it depends on how you come at it, because for me, I already had some wins before I came in. So that's why it's hard. Like when I look at him and I look at Malia, her story, it's like, I love to see these people who go into SHT and they do it right. If I would have known about SHT before I did keto, then I probably would have had some really great results at the beginning. But SHT helps me continue to be awesome. I didn't come into it.
It helps you further what you've already started.
Yeah, and it helps me fine tune for long term how to live. Keto was never going to do that for me, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There was probably a point where I got to, in keto where I was like, I saw with our family weight challenge, I lost a bunch of weight. And then going into SHT, I wasn't counting stuff. I wasn't worrying about how much I was consuming in amounts as much. And now I could just walk around and eat real food and it's easy. So for some people like Maurice, he needs, you can get the traction and keep going and never walk and turn around and look back and never sit on that bench and eat Cheetos because you've seen it and you don't want to turn around. Yeah. Some people don't have that in the beginning, so they may not have that mentality. But for me, I look at it more as like, I don't want to ever go back into eating that way long term. It's not going to do anything. As I get older, I just see, and I'm going to go back to my family trip because there were, people there consuming food and I see them. I'm like, they're eating carbs. And then all of a sudden everyone's napping. And my husband is like, I've never seen so many adults nap. I was like, I know, it's crazy. So I think when you get to a certain point where you feel great about yourself, you don't look back. So whether it is you lost a bunch of weight or your body's feeling great or you're getting better sleep and you're just in a different headspace, I guess, then you don't look back because you figured it out.
Right. Well, what you're saying is at some point you have to see the results for the work you put in. And then the question is how much are you putting in? Can you expect I don't want results, and you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes if you go in just barely making any changes, you might not see the results that you want.
Well, and it doesn't have to be a number. It doesn't have to be a number.
It doesn't. No, I'm just saying results. I'm just saying results in general. So like you brought up Malia. I interacted with Malia a lot in her initial, I don't even want to know, it was like maybe 6 months or something like that. And she was having a really hard time. Like, she wanted to see she was seeing results, but it wasn't happening fast enough for her. And she was kind of bouncing back and forth about like, I guess with her motivation, but she stuck with it. So what I think I'm hearing you say, something we can pull from this is one way because you're saying that this helps you sustain it. One way that you can cross that threshold of just tinkering with it and bouncing back and forth between doing really good and not doing really good is number one, you're looking for results, but the results don't have to be a number on the scale.
Or immediate.
Right? Yeah. You just have to have this understanding that I'm doing what's right for my body and it's healthy and it may take some time. But when I visit with private clients, I have this, the reflection, the subjective assessment. How do I feel? How do I sleep? How's my skin? How's my digestion? How's my mental clarity? There's a lot of ways to measure progress besides what a lot of people are looking for, which is just that number on the scale. So maybe keeping in the back of your mind, like what other things are changing for me besides just the weight, if the weight is, trying to find, where the body's shifting in some other ways so that okay, well, this is working for me or something along those lines.
Yeah. You said, yeah, we started the conversation talking about how you get to that headspace where you don't ever look back. And yeah, one of two ways you can get there, being completely motivated by, everyone's different. It could be a number on the scale. It could be, I'm not taking meds anymore. It could be, I'm sleeping better. I'm not tired and lethargic. It could be any of those things. As far as like, what is your trigger, I guess, what is the thing that you want to change? But the reflection, I think, is the biggest component. And then like, when I had talked to Alex and I brought her on into the SHT, my initial with her was to write things down, to journal, to reflect, because at the end of the day, we as Americans, I think, get this in our head that we want these quick answers. We want a quick magic pill to fix us. We want a quick little diet plan. It's it's not a long-term mentality. And I always say that, and it probably gets a broken record, but I say it because as I get older, I need to be able to figure out a lifestyle that I work in where I can do this and not feel like I'm missing out and have to look back and turn around because I want to eat that thing over there. There's so many things that we have here that make it easy for me not to want to do that. But like I said, I think it's a headspace you have to get your mind into, and it could be different factors that lead you there.
Yeah.
Everyone is different, but reflection is important.
Yeah. Let's just agree then, like, we need to look for changes in different ways, not just the one thing that we think we want to see change. And that's why it's useful sometimes to be a part of a group or to work with a health coach or something, so that you can say, okay, if I'm doing what's right by my body, maybe it's not just the weight. If it's about health, maybe I should be looking for other things to shift and change. And if I can see those things shift and change, then I know I'm moving in a good direction. And maybe that will give someone the motivation to continue.
Yeah.
And then I think the second thing that I heard you say was that you would tremendously benefit from having something that's ongoing. So if someone comes to one seminar and walks away and we expect them to make this life change, that's very difficult to do, or even one progression. But if you go to a seminar or a progression, and then you're involved in something like SuperHumans United, or if you're just, reading your own books, or have a good friend like you that's constantly engaged in this stuff so that it's constantly in your face, I think that constant involvement also helps to perpetuate someone to eventually to where they get to the point they cross that threshold. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the company you keep and the people you surround yourself with that bring you up health wise, like, your community of people you've just grown in Idaho there, just because you are doing what you're doing, people notice. And I think that's going to happen with my family is people are going to start to notice, because eventually they're going to be like, I'm tired. What are you doing, Mindy? And so I think it happens. And I think that, the more we hang out with our friends, and maybe they may not be on it all the time, but they're looking at you and they're like, hey, you're on it. How do I get there? And the SuperHumans community, I think, helps people continue to be there, because you get that support and you get to have someone to lean on. Like if I didn't have Ryan on my trip, it would have been a lot more difficult, because I have someone with me who
someone else that was doing something similar.
Yeah, understands. Yeah.
So cool. So let's again boil that down to 3 good learning points to cross the threshold from this is something I'm tinkering with to this is a part of who I am. Number 1, you want to look for results, but they don't have to just be the scale or whatever it is you think you want to see change. You probably want to do a comprehensive initial assessment that gauges not just body composition and scale weight, but also symptom assessments.
Your reflection piece has that.
The reflection thing,
in
energy levels, digestion, skin, like there's a lot of different ways to measure progress moving forward. So you want to see things move in a good direction. And then number 2, like we've just said, is having some kind of ongoing support, whether that's your own personal self-education, being a part of a freaking amazing community like SuperHumans United, or having a spouse or a partner or a friend or someone else that's involved, so that you have something that's constantly putting information in front of you and you're constantly being engaged with it to some degree.
Yeah. So back to Maurice, is that something that he is like, does he feel comfortable with like being in the membership? He has that support as far as like, he's not going to look back. Is that something that he uses, finds helpful?
Oh yeah. Well, there's 2 things. It's the community, which he's one of those guys that doesn't participate, but he watches everything. He always reads and sees everything. But then
Is he listening to us talk about him all the time?
Probably, yeah, because I always share it with them anyway. And then the other thing is, like, we have constant meetings. Like, we have meetings at a minimum once a month.
Yeah. So you're his person. Yeah.
Yeah, and so anytime I learn something new or different, and just this discussion we had the other day, it was just like it's another level to add to his solidity and confidence in what he's doing. But I can only imagine someone just learning for a progression or just learning for a little bit, and then they don't have anything else or any interaction with anything around these concepts anymore. It's so easy to fall off and get swayed by something else.
Well, again, it has to be intentional. What are you planning to do? You got to be intentional with it. I mean,
and then that's the third thing. So if we had three things, it would be number one, measure progress in a lot of different ways. Number two, have some kind of constant, ongoing interaction, engagement, support, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then number three, have realistic expectations or something along the lines, like you said, like look at this as I want to change my life for a lifestyle and a lifetime versus
you can't go into it. Yeah, you can't go into it like, I got to get to this weight or I'm walking away and doing something else. You got to give it time, honestly.
Well, but even if you do hit that weight, it's like, then what? Unless you want to make this a part of your life. So
that goes back. If no one in this podcast has listened to your Mystic Self, that will be a really good plug-in right there. The Mystic Self was very motivational because you had talked about, like, you get to that point and you can't just say, hey, I'm going to meet this and then that's it. You got to look at it more, like I said, more intentionally.
I'm taking notes here because this is, man, I'm really enjoying doing this with you. This is some good stuff coming out of this. All right, cool. Next, anything else on that little thing? I think we got some good learning points out of that.
I know we went off topic, but tell me about his TV show. What's the deal?
Oh, I do. I want to, but I just want to cover one other thing that we had talked about.
Okay.
And then we'll finish with that with him. So I think I told you, a lot of us that have been doing this for a little bit, especially if we've tinkered with the carnivore animal-based progression, like it's like we kind of have a hard time getting plants in.
Oh, yes.
And we feel like we want to sometimes. So the seasonal foodguide.org. Have you seen that? I posted it a few times.
I mean, so I would like to say yes, but the answer would be no, because
I'm going to share my screen real quick. Because he was really excited about this. I told him, I said, look, maybe one idea is to go to, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So one idea is to go to seasonalfoodguide.org. It's one of my favorite resources. And even if you can't see it, you can hear me, right? Seasonalfoodguide.org. And if you go to, usually if you're on your phone, it will automatically pull up your location and the time of year. But if we go to, let's say Nevada.
Say Nevada. You got to say Nevada.
Nevada. And if we go to, late July.
Ooh, I love how they.
And then it filters it based on your location and the time of year. And so I told Maurice, I said, hey, let's check this out and let's look through it and see what pops out at you as something that you'd like to try or that you already know that you enjoy. And so as we went through this, both him and I were like, ooh, berries, absolutely. Cantaloupe, oh my gosh, I haven't had that in a little bit. Carrots, I love all the time anyway.
That's hard. Okay, so that's hard though, because are those seasonal vegetables coming from Nevada? Or are they being flown in from California? Or should we look at late July in California? Because I feel like a lot of our produce comes from California.
Well, so I've asked this question to him, and what I think it is it's regional, right? So
Southwest.
Nevada is close to Southern California, so it's relatively local. So that's a very good question. And I actually messaged him this morning because I knew we were going to talk about it. Say, hey, I just want to confirm how you come up with these, but I think I remember reading somewhere that it's a regional thing, even though most of us know that we don't grow this stuff in our backyard. It's relatively local because we can get this stuff from Southern California,
Well, and if you spend enough time in the grocery store and go to the produce section, you'll notice you're not getting strawberries in winter. It's not happening.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you can, but it's just not going to be seasonal,
It's definitely not organic.
But regardless, when you come in here, every month I come in here, it changes. I always put a reminder in SuperHumans United and it changes. So if nothing else, this gives you a way to kind of vary up. If your concern is you're not getting enough produce, then you can just check in here once a month and just scroll through here and say, oh, I haven't done that in a while, or I've never tried that. I'd like to.
That's very helpful.
Something along those lines. Yeah. Yeah. So he really, really liked that.
That is awesome.
Yeah. All right. What was the other thing that I wanted to cover with him? It was.
I would like to go. I live right by Gilcrease, and that's the only orchard out here. And I thought that they had cantaloupes because I follow them. I don't know about like any of their, as far as our fruits and vegetables and organic.
Well, that'd be a good field trip. Go ask them and ask them these questions. That would be a really good question. So
we could have an event out there.
Yeah, we'll combine what we learned from both of those, because I did put a message into seasonalfoodguide.org, and then they're actually local, and we can ask them like, what do you feel like is easy to grow? Plus, there's also this gardening company in Vegas that will come and set up a garden, at your place and help you maintain it and stuff like that. And they would also have a pretty good understanding of what's possible, I guess. So
that's true.
All right. Yeah. Now, the final thing with Maurice was that he brought up a TV show, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how he got qualified for it, but when the producer or whatever was talking to him about it, they were like, look, we can provide you with a health coach, but obviously you've seen a lot of great results. So if you want to use yours.
Oh, that's nice.
Then that's totally, I thought that was cool. That's totally cool. But what we want you to do is send us some info, some details about like, your transformation and what's happened and stuff like that. So I basically helped him, or I put together an outline of a flow that I thought would be really good if he did a video, and then he's working on that right now. But
what's the premise behind the TV show? It's like
a transformation, like a health transformation. It's not like a Biggest Loser thing. It's like a health.
It's like a documentary kind of type of thing.
Examples of health transformations.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get some exposure there if he gets in there, which I think you look at his before and after pictures that we just shared on his podcast. It's like,
I know.
It's like one of the ones out of a TV show,
Yeah. I know some people I'd like to see that on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how you get there, but when you get there, it is very fulfilling.
Yeah. All right. You mind if we transition into something else?
Yes. What are we talking about now?
So I talked about, I'm not going to use their names, just in case. But the young man that's trying to put on some muscle weight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so at our recent visit, we've had a lot of visits. I'm really proud of this couple, by the way. It's
how old is he?
I want to say he's like 17.
Okay.
So it's him and his mom, and they've both done really good work in putting this stuff into practice. His mom's seen a lot of great changes. He's noticing some changes, but it's just hard for him to put on weight because he's at that age. It's like, for a lot of guys, when we're in high school, it's just, you're just kind of got that scrawny thing going on, and you're trying to put
I don't know. When I met Ryan, he was, Ryan was the chunk-a-monk in high school. Still loved him then.
But there were other guys like that, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a thing with a lot of guys. Like you want to be big and strong. It was the same thing Ryan wanted when he first came and visited with me, right?
Yeah.
So, but this young guy, like the understanding I've tried to get him to get to is that, look, if you're feeding your body right, if you're prioritizing animal foods, if you're eating a decent amount of protein, plus he's doing a couple protein shakes.
Okay. I was gonna say, what's he doing? What's his thing? He's doing more protein.
Well, yeah, he's got our little protein shake that we do. Plus, he's eating. Okay. He makes animal foods the first priority at every meal. He eats 3 meals a day. He does nurture metabolic flexibility with some space in between the meals. But he's spot on with all that, and
that's good. That's great.
Sleep dialed in. He went to our sleep seminar, and so sometimes it just takes some time. So he's finally coming to this understanding that, look, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm training hard. I'm eating real food. I'm prioritizing protein. And sometimes it's just going to take some time. And I said, look, man, you're going to look back 3 years from now and you're going to be like, dang, I actually look pretty good. And it's just because it doesn't happen overnight. And he's starting to feel that way already because he's seeing in himself, okay, maybe I am changing. It's just a little bit slower than I wanted to. But one of the things we talked about, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that does remind me a lot of Ryan, because when he walked into like Combine, or even, because I think he came into Combine before he was an SHT at CrossFit. And I mean, he had lost a bunch of weight after keto and he was very lean. And then now he's like, well, how am I building this muscle? How am I building, now that I'm lean, I want to look like I'm fit. And so in the last 3 years it's almost 4 years, I don't know. But just living this SHT lifestyle long-term, let's just say over the last, 3 to 4 years, along with, putting in the time moving around, weights and sweating and all that. And he's been, I mean, we're pretty good sleepers. There's some days that are we need to fix and other little small things, but for the most part, like he's really come around with that. But with the gaining weight, protein, all of that stuff, like making that a priority. I could say the person, I probably should have him share a picture of like what he looked like when he walked in, and then now what he looks like, because there is a big transformation. Yeah, there is a huge.
We need to get him on a separate episode, but I remember with Ryan, one of the discussions we had in the beginning, because he was doing the weightlifting with Ron in the garage.
Yeah.
I said, look, man, you need to come and try what we do here, because there's something about this variety of movements and the intensities and a combination of strength with gymnastics, with conditioning. And when you put all those together, the human being that comes out of that on the other end after doing it for a long period of time is a very capable, fit looking human being. And sure enough, after, like a year or 2 years of doing it, like you start to see vascularity in him and he's starting to look jacked. And then I think recently with Ryan introducing the protein shake, he feels like, and I feel like too, it was kind of a game changer just because of that additional protein that he's getting every day.
Yeah, that's what the connection there with your client is that, it does take time. You're not going to see these results. And maybe I'll share a picture so you can show it with him. Like, hey, there's this guy. I mean, he's a little bit, obviously a little bit older, but he's a good example of it's an effort long-term, it's not going to be quick wins.
Well, it's long-term, but then also you have to constantly scrutinize, is my training what it should be? Am I really working hard, or am I just showing up and kind of going through the motions?
Am
I, if I'm just doing, not that there's anything wrong with it, but if I'm just doing one modality, like just Pilates my entire life, is that as good as like some weight training and some gymnastics and some other stuff mixed with it, so
that's That's true.
So that was a good discussion. And then we transitioned into, okay, so now we're talking about supplementation. And I just looked up some stats on nutritional deficiencies in the US. And I pulled it up from the CDC and a couple other places. So I wanted to share that with you.
Should I make a guess?
Sure.
What is the most deficient?
Is this Jeopardy? Are you asking a question that
I don't know.
Oh, no. Are you answering in a question?
So you said you looked up to see what the most deficient supplement?
No. The nutritional deficiencies that we encounter in the U.S.
So I'm going to go with, is it like vitamin A?
So this is what I put together here. Okay. Can you see my screen? No, that's a great guess. I'd say.
I mean, I can't say vitamin D because we live here in the Southwest,
Yeah, but you can say the vitamin D because most people don't get outside. Most people are scared of the sun.
That's true. Fair.
So you're absolutely right. The most dangerous deficiencies are the fat soluble nutrients. So check it out. This is straight from the CDC. All right. So B6, iron, you see iron in both places here, vitamin D, and specifically they're talking about D3, vitamin C, and then these others. And they actually say with some of these ones that are less than one, it may not be so important or crucial. Now, I think a big reason for this, because when you look at what is recommended for, what are the real food versions of these nutrients that we're missing? A lot of it's animal foods.
Yeah.
So, did I pull that up? Yeah. So D3, K2 are things that I recommend. EPA and DHA are things I recommend because most people aren't eating fish that give you those omega-3s that are good for anti-inflammation.
That's interesting because if you're a mother, you are, if you're a mom breastfeeding or whatever, and your kid's getting DHA or whatever, but if you're not and you're using formula, like all the formulas that you feed your children have DHA in them, they talk about how DHA in small children and they need to have that. And it's like, well, at what point do we say we don't need to have that anymore? Maybe long-term there's a reason. And so it's weird. Like if you're a parent and you know that you see these ingredients in the food that your kids are eating, why aren't you eating those too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point. And so one thing that we talked about was that, first of all, these deficiencies are because of a population that we're being told that plant-based is the way to go. And a population that overall, majority-wise, eats a lot of inappropriate processed foods, right? So of course, we're going to have these kinds of issues. If you looked within the keto, paleo-ish community, real foodish community, SHT community, then I don't think that you would see anything like this,
Yeah.
But what's interesting is when you look at those top deficiencies, and then if you research what are the best sources of those nutrients, the majority of it's meat.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of it's animal food. So the best sources of those things that we're deficient in the US, if you just started to include more animal foods in your diet, then you would start to remedy a lot of those deficiencies. And then there's some things that I recommend people get a little bit of anyway, because we're probably not eating animals nose to tail and getting some things that we probably need to anyway. And that's why I come up with this list here.
Yeah.
I think most people would benefit from a vitamin D3 supplement, from a K2 supplement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To address your thing about, so growing kids definitely need the DHA for the brain. As adults, it may not be as important, especially if you're not eating processed food. But if you're eating processed food that has all the soybean oil and canola oil, and those toxic omega-6s, you may need something to balance that out. So it's,
or even like a
even more
vitamin
important.
D. Vitamin D. I remember I had to give my kid these little droplets of vitamin D when she was little because there wasn't enough, I think, in my breast milk for her. So it's like those things that you think about as a parent that you're important there. The doctor's like, oh, give these things to your kids. They need to consume them. Then I'm like, well, what am I consuming?
Yeah, exactly.
But the D3, the K2, my kids like that. The one with the A, the DKA, the
ADK.
little drop. They still using those little drops. We still have some. They like those. It works.
Nice. Yeah. Well, those fat soluble nutrients, I think, are the most important things, and some of the things that are missing, and that would be the D3, the K2, or the vitamin K in general, the full spectrum K1, K2, and the different derivatives. EPA and DHA might be useful. Vitamin A, and then I listed up some other things right here. But then we got to this this point where this would be what I would consider a very foundational recommendation for most people. It happens to be our healing and recovery supplementation protocol, and that would be. And of course, I have biotics up here because I love using biotics. But I mean, if you get it, however you get it, collagen, I think most people would benefit from because most of us just don't consume that much collagen or foods that contain collagen. I love that D3K2 product that Biotics just came out with, but there's some versions on Amazon that are perfectly fine.
I like that it's all in one because I'm taking the 2 now still. But it makes sense because they kind of need to go together.
Yeah, or it's useful for sure.
Yeah.
And then cod liver, probably for adults, good to take in small amounts, not as necessary for someone that's eating soybean oil and canola oil and stuff like that.
Is that a droplet, that one?
Well, there's capsules and there's liquid. So there's a couple of brands we recommend. We like this Rosita, and then that droppy version, which is just, I think it's just capsules, and they may have a liquid version. And then we came back to the organ recommendations, and so I love our multi-organ and our liver, and so this guy's trying to put on some muscle mass, and I say, hey, look, one of the best things that you can take is some kind of version of testicles, because that's going to help your manliness, and I swear with myself and some people that I've used it with, we've done some tests and measured some subjective things and strength and stuff like that. I am convinced it's one of the reasons I feel so good and I feel so strong.
It's the manliness. It's the manliness pill you're taking.
That's right. It's the testicles. When I brought it up, I remember he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Well, it's not human. It's it's bovine."
This is for your young client we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's taking that because he's trying to build some muscle. So maybe I should give some to Ryan, huh? Some manliness.
Well, I think I've tried to talk to him. He just seems kind of anti-supplement to some degree. So yeah.
I can probably sway him.
Yeah. So really good quality stuff. I mean, I think supplements are amazing in the context of a real food way of eating, especially if you're being strategic with it and you're doing it like an experiment. Like I want to see if I can see some things move or shift,
would you say though, that like if you were eating a lot of liver, you wouldn't need to consume that?
Well, what you get in liver is not what you're going to get in some testicles.
Okay. So have you ever eaten testicles?
I would if I could find some, but no, I have not. But I do take this testicle product. But remember we had talked about, I don't know if we talked about in the last episode or just in conversation, but like there's this organ therapy is based off of like supports like. So if I have a damaged liver, a fatty liver, I have some damage from a lifetime of drinking and doing drugs, like I might benefit from taking liver to give my liver what it needs to heal its liver, And then if I'm trying to improve my like fertility and my virility, then I might benefit from taking some testicles.
Interesting.
To support the testicles, yeah. There's a couple of good books that I've read recently that that's why I'm on this kick right now. If I have a client that comes in and they have prediabetes, which a lot of that's pancreas related,
Yeah.
because the pancreas secretes the different hormones, then I give them pancreas. And in addition to what they're doing with food and stuff like that, we see some really great results. But bottom line is we just got on this little kick of nutritional deficiencies. And what was just really interesting is the sources of the deficiencies that we see, most of it's meat-based. And the reason that we have those deficiencies is because we are bombarded with this message of plant-based, animals are bad for the planet, avoid red meat and saturated fat. And that's still with us so strong that people avoid that stuff. And what's the alternative? They try to go plant-based, or they eat a bunch of processed food.
Where would you put that in your realm of, let's say someone's coming into SHT for the first time and they're just working on their food? Where do you start to bring in with the supplements? Like you just talked about all these things, because your client here, I'm like, you've had him for a while and he's starting to, he's like, well, I'm making a reflection. I'm noticing maybe I should do these things instead. So then you're like, oh, here's a supplement. So is it something that you mention right away, or are you looking at some kind of results and then going from there? Because I know that some clients probably need more of some supplements compared to others. Obviously, we're not all the same. So how do you do that?
So I think it's probably, for most people, it's too overwhelming with all the initial information they get anyway.
Okay.
Every time I have like an initial session, we almost always, in some form or fashion, cover the basics of real food or something along those. And usually for most people, that's a complete flip from what they're used to, So that by itself is slightly overwhelming. So I usually don't bring it up until they either ask,
okay,
or in the beginning, I do recommend digestive support almost always, because I think most people come in and they have significant digestive issues, but I'm also just a big fan of supporting digestion anyway. But I usually don't bring it up for a few meetings unless you specifically ask about it, or like someone wants a protein shake and we'll talk about that, and maybe a couple. But most people are pretty curious about that though, because they feel like,
well, it's like a thing, like
everybody wants to know about supplements.
Yeah, supplements. Like, is this something that you're kind of taking in and out as you learn more about your body, or is there like clients who have been on digestive stuff and are still on it, or do they grow out of it because of the food and now they're learning a new way of eating and it's their GI is now on point? Like, is there some people who take supplements just all the time, or like it's come and go?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But for the digestive support, a lot of people will start with it and see great results, and then it's almost like their digestive system gets stronger from that, and they don't feel like they need it anymore. Now, I would say that they would still benefit from it, but we have a dosing protocol with the hydrochloric acid product, so that you increase the amount that you're taking until you feel this warming sensation, and then you back off. And then you'll feel the warming sensation again at some point, and then back off again. And the point there is that your body is, because it's assimilating nutrients better, it makes hydrochloric acid on its own better.
Okay.
So it needs less and less of that support. So you naturally start to kind of down regulate how much you're taking. With the other ones, like I usually recommend people take it indefinitely unless they just don't want to. And then the other stuff is just constant experimentation. Like we said, most people would benefit from D3 because they don't get a ton of sun.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's something yeah, definitely. I was just thinking, like, if you're taking those types of supplements, like digestive, for example, because that seems to be very common with most of your clients, right? So at what point are like, oh, I'm not going to go off, I'm going to go off of it now because I feel comfortable in my body, or like, hey, I'm not getting the results I want, but I'm like, oh, are you eating real food all the time? And so the results obviously are not going to be valid.
Right. So this is why I come up with my kind of foundational recommendations. I would say digestive support is beneficial for every human being, because the better your digestion, the better the nutrients you're getting from your food, no matter what. So I think you can do that indefinitely. And at the same time, for most people, it's optional unless you have consistent digestive issues. But I am always going to take my digestive support.
I'm just thinking
supplementation.
Okay. I was just going to say, I was just thinking of a family member who has digestive issues, and I wonder if I don't know if I can get them on the real food thing, but if
Well,
that would be
real food helps
beneficial.
tremendously by
I
itself. Most
know.
people, you notice like digestive issues clear up, but then
Yeah.
that support, I'd say most people would benefit from over the long
Hmm.
term. But that's why I have these foundational recommendations, because the organs, like I think everyone would benefit from, but you can
Yeah.
experiment with which organs you take. I
Hmm.
love for everyone to take the multi-organ. I love for everyone to take liver, and then you can pinpoint things that you're trying to tinker with, like we're doing with the testicles and the guy that's trying to put on some muscle. So.
Yeah.
And then the D3 and K2, I think everyone needs to take it, because most people probably, don't get enough
No.
sun, and most people aren't eating the things that contain K2.
Yeah.
So that was a good discussion that we had with them. And let's see if there's anything else that we wanted to cover there, because we've been going at this for almost an hour now, right?
Sorry, I get off topic.
No, we all, I love this. I think this is such good discussion. So let's finish with, this is really good. So I had a visit with Mike's daughter,
Okay.
and it was our second visit. So we've only had the first visit, which was kind of like a basics and how to read labels and how to make some intelligent swaps and stuff like that.
Hmm.
We covered the verbiage for eating out. So I don't know if we covered this on the last podcast. Did we talk about that?
No, we had talked about like what we were saying at restaurants, but we haven't talked about like I guess I would put that in the realm of things that we're working on when it comes to how we talk to family and then how we talk to people when we're ordering food.
When we're
We talked to,
ordering?
yeah, we talked about
Yeah.
like Davis and his eating out and how to
Okay, we
talk at
did talk about
restaurants
it. Yeah.
as far as being nice, but we didn't go over like the actual verbiage that would be helpful to use. And I think that would be a nice little something to include
Well,
in community.
if we did, then we'll just reiterate it real quick. But she thought it was really useful. So she felt very uncomfortable going out to eat with friends and family and wanting to, make some changes and ask some questions, but she just didn't want to be a pain in the middle of like a bunch of other stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
So then I said, well, this is the verbiage that we used when we were in Maui. I thought it worked really well. First of all, we tried to build a good relationship with the waiter,
Mm-hmm.
and then just have some good casual friendly conversation. And then when we get to the ordering process, we were like, well, we're trying to be gluten free, and we prefer butter and avocado oil and olive oil over things like soybean oil and canola oil. Based on
Yeah.
that, do you have any recommendations? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very passive way to say what you're looking for without being super super nitpicky.
Yeah.
And that resonated with her really well. So
Yeah. No, that was helpful.
yeah.
That was the helpful
Yeah.
thing for me when I was calling places. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we also talked about, so she feels like she stress eats, and I have a lot of clients that do this. Did you ever get to the point where you're doing a lot of stress eating?
I would no, I feel like when I'm usually stressed when I feel like I've got too many tasks and then I
Mm-hmm.
don't have time to eat, so I don't eat. I guess that's the opposite. I think the only time that I feel like I'm consuming more food is probably like hormone things related
Mm-hmm.
with, women
Well,
stuff.
yeah, that's an interesting point, though, that you say, like, sometimes stress does different things to different people, right? Sometimes stress makes people want to eat snackier, carbier foods. And then sometimes, like, stress keeps us so busy that we forget to eat. But
Yeah.
with her, it was a situation of like she does really good with her 3 meals a day. She does a shake in the morning. She doesn't have any snack or anything until lunch, and then has a dinner,
Mm-hmm.
with the family or the boyfriend or something. But she said sometimes when she gets stressed out, like she ends up stress eating. And the conversation we had was that, hey, you can't beat yourself up for this, because I think a lot of people have this mentality that like it's in my mind, like I should be able to control this. And the reality is that when you have what?
I mean, we would like to believe that we have so much control that we control all the little small things, but we're humans, things
Yeah.
happen. And so
Well,
I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm like, it's hard because we do put the pressure on ourselves and we need to
no,
stop. And I
absolutely.
think that's where the stress comes from, is like, stop putting the pressure on yourself because we're human. We are going to make mistakes. Be prepared for it. Don't go into it like you're going to be perfect at it.
Right. And that's part of it. But what I'm saying here is that when you have stress, let's say it's work stress, you got like
Yeah.
a deadline that gets thrown on you or something like that, and then you have
Okay.
this desire to snack. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I see.
Um,
Yeah.
it's not a lot of us feel like, okay, I should be able to control this urge. Like, where did this urge come from? Like, I should have the willpower to control it. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that it's very physiological, because when you have stress, you secrete cortisol and some other kind of energy producing hormones and glucocorticoids and things like that. And what they do is they mobilize glucose for some immediate energy boost, you know? So when you have stress, you have this kind of glucose influx or something, you know, imagine like having some real danger and you just have like all of a sudden some energy out of nowhere. That's partly cortisol, is partly maybe adrenaline or something like that. But the point is that there's some glucose being used for energy. And so, as we know, eating carbs begets carbs. So you have this glucose energy that makes you crave more glucose to keep that energy going. And so my conversation with her was that, number one, you can't beat yourself up for not having the self-control for these cravings and urges. But what you can do is make sure that when you have that craving around stress, just make sure that you have something appropriate. So then we just brainstormed some really good things to have at the office, in the fridge, and on hand that she could use in the event that she had some stressful situations. And so the list we came up with was something like, you know, having a Zevia available because she felt like that sweet taste would do something. I was like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then the SHT chips, and I posted those Pringles alternatives in the group the other day.
I know, I saw those.
So, you know, those are starchy and carby. And so then the final thing that we had, and I think we can kind of finish on this piece, is that I think it's okay to switch over to something that's carby as long as it's made with better ingredients, but we're still feeding that sugar cycle. And so then we talked about the power of including some fat with those carby things if you're going to do the carby things.
Okay.
What would be ideal would be like a hard-boiled egg or something like that. But if she's going to do like SHT chips, I was like, if you dip it in some guacamole or some sour cream or have it with some cheese, then you're blunting the effect of the glucose spike. And so then you're not going to continue to have those cravings for the rest of the day. And so that was our kind of our homework for the rest of the next 2 weeks, was to stock up fridge and office with healthy alternatives made with good ingredients, but also understanding that when we have carbs, especially, you know, during the day, if we want to mitigate that carb cycle, then if we can package that with a little bit of healthy fats, then it's going to kind of blunt the signal of that glucose spike. And I'm probably not going to have as much of a craving for that stuff a little bit later on.
Yeah, that's good. I like the guac and chips. I don't get to consume guac as much as I'd like to because avocado makes my mouth itchy now. But
it might not be a good thing to consume then.
I know I can't do it as much as I'd like to. But the eggs. What about like is there like a good like egg salad SHT recipe? Like you could dip.
Yeah, we could easily put that together for sure.
There you go. That would be good too. What about like jerky?
Yeah, she doesn't do meat, so we were trying to come up with things that were conducive to what she likes. So she does eggs, you know, she does some cheese and stuff like that. So those were the and I didn't
peanut butter.
So strict. Yeah, maybe that almond butter or something like that.
Yeah,
but I just didn't want to be so strict as to say no, don't do carbs. The first step was, well, we can do some carbs if they are from good sources, but let's also make sure that we're packaging that with a little bit of fat to kind of blunt that that glucose signal. So and it was real. I think it was really comforting to her to understand that when you stress eat, and for all of us, when we get stressed out and all of a sudden we feel like we want to be really snacky, nothing wrong with us. It's not a self-control thing. It's very physiological, because stress is kind of a glucose producing and glucose using situation.
All right, so we're back after technical difficulties. Mindy had a wardrobe change.
I did. It's okay. It's much better, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I noticed this light looks good with my eyes.
I said, yeah, as if you need to look better, but I mean, you look great. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was a great hour of power. And what do we want to finish off with?
We want to finish off with those, I guess, nuggets of information that hopefully people got from listening.
Yeah. So if we went through the whole thing, like what we talked about, Maurice. And,
yes. Your friend, the young child. I don't want to say young child. That sounds horrible because I have children. I say young child. No, the young adult.
Adult.
Who is working on weight gain, and what kind of things you gave him as far as advice. And I'd love to share. I'm going to try to make that a thing, like maybe share something with Ryan. And we made that connection. The supplement talk, we moved into that.
Yeah.
I guess there was a takeaway for the supplements. You think people?
I mean, just keeping it basic and real food based, and trying to figure out where you're lacking and what you're eating versus taking a handful of stuff.
Yeah, the right time. Yeah, the right time to I guess implement them too. Yeah. That was my thing. Was like figuring that out.
And there's some basic foundational things, and then there's some things that you can say, hey, if I want to enhance this or improve this, what do I need to look at? You know, that's where we talked about organ therapy. And then we moved into the end discussion, which was that whole stress eating thing.
Yeah, your other client had brought that up, and trying to find great snack choices, I guess.
Minimizing that glucose spike with a little bit of fat. So, all right, so let's finish with what we got coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow we got a mindset talk, right?
Yep. Tomorrow, 10:30.
You might not hear this in time to get there, but we're going to record it. So all you got to do is reach out, email us. And then next weekend we
have our dinner at the Market Grill Cafe at 3:00.
Dinner at 3 p.m. Everybody.
I know. It's the ideal time.
Yeah, it's not crowded. And we can sit there and bug the heck out of the waiter and just make sure that we can answer all the questions that we want. And you can sit there and listen to us do our little talk.
No pressure to feel like he has to run to all the other tables because that's their slow time.
Yeah, exactly.
We should probably put that as a preferred time for people to eat. They would like that.
I like that. I really do. You know, get there at 3 and you don't have the crowded, chaos.
Yeah.
So difficult asking questions. So that's a good pro tip. I'm in right there.
I don't know if I can snag that slogan. That's yours. Oh. All right.
Pro tip.
Yeah, no pro tip. Pro tip: eat before maybe 5.
Eat before 5 to miss the.
I can't say I do that, but I'm always work in progress.
No, well, when eating out.
Yes, for sure, eating out. Plus, sometimes if you're smart about it, you could hit up the happy hour.
That's right. Ooh, that's right, because that's when the happy hour is too. That is actually a really good pro tip.
Yes. Pro tip. Eat early. Also bonus happy hour.
You can annoy the waiter as much as you want because he's not rushed to go other places.
Yeah.
And you probably benefit from having discounted drinks.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, cool. Hey, it's been great visiting with you, and look forward to seeing you in person here in a little bit.
Yeah, I know. In person at the dinner.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
All right.
All right. See ya.
A week. Okay.
All right.
All right. Bye.
All right, cool. That was good. How do I stop it?